This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so today we'll start with the Salesforce development, and also one of the point to know the development. So at least knowing the basics of the Salesforce administration is good. I mean that's the prerequisite. Okay, so some of you, if you are joining directly, so just understand you should know some of the basics of the Salesforce administration. So directly learning development and so proceeding won't work with Salesforce. So when you want to say you are a developer, you should also know about the Salesforce administration concepts. So that is one thing you need to know. So now, as part of the Salesforce development, so what exactly we are going to discuss? So we'll
Sir, one quick question. What are all the prerequisites for maintaining a dev? Like as you said, we need to have an admin background. Along with what kind of prerequisites is there for dev? Like we need to know about the JavaScript or VBScript or Java kind of background.
Yeah. So all those things I'll be explaining from the scratch. So
thank you, sir.
So you need to know some of the basics of the Salesforce administration. Since already you attended admin, I think you are good. Okay, I'm talking about sometimes people directly join for the development. Okay, so for them. So the other things, which language we use. So all those things I'll explain, and we'll start everything from the scratch. Yeah, I'm not expecting anyone to know already about one of the programming languages. So some of the development background is not needed. We'll focus and we'll start from the very scratch. Okay. So here, yeah.
Do you have any recommendation? I am doing directly the dev session. I did not do the admin. So is there something I can do on the side so that I'll cope up with the admin prereqs, or do you have any other sessions or recordings that I can go through?
Yeah. So you need to, I mean, at least see first 6 hours of admin. So just you can ping me, okay?
Okay.
I'll provide those.
Srinivas, okay? I'm the same. I would need the same.
Yeah. So maybe you can
or
ping me.
else we can go to Trailhead and we can watch admin course, right, over there.
Yeah, but people
instead
they
of
join
disturbing
the
you.
because, yeah. So people they join the course because they don't want to spend more time on doing the thing.
That is there. Yeah.
Anyway, we also suggest that. Okay. So along with the introduction of admin and those things.
Yeah, it helps. Whatever videos we have, it definitely helps, sir. True.
Yeah. So we'll suggest that. Okay.
Yeah.
So now this development part, whatever Salesforce is offering. So as part of the cloud computing, we say platform as a service. Okay. So basically, Salesforce is providing a platform where directly we can do the development. So no need to install anything. So it is cloud-based. All we need to do, log into Salesforce. Already in the Salesforce server. So they installed everything what we need for the development. So we need to just start doing the development and develop the applications. So that's what we do. So it is cloud-based. Yeah, so for the development, mostly no need to install anything. Log into the Salesforce website and let's start doing the development. Internally, so whatever the platform they are offering, right? Once we log in, so if you are very new to get the Salesforce account, you need to go to developer.salesforce.com So click on sign up and provide the details. And, after signing up, you will get one email. By checking email, click on verify, and you can set the password and the secret questions. Yeah, so then to log in, already we know, right? So you need to open this website, login.salesforce.com, and enter the username and password. Okay, so I have this is the username. So once we log in, we can say by default that platform is also available. So we can start doing the development. Okay, so that point we have to understand. No need to install anything. It is cloud based. So the platform, whatever Salesforce is offering, so we call as force.com platform. Right? People say force.com platform. Right, nowadays they are asking us to say salesforce.com platform. Yeah, so technically this is the name. So they say whenever we talk about the development. So on this platform, the Salesforce platform, our code, whatever we develop, will run. Okay, so that's the thing first we need to know. So on this platform, so which kind of development we can do? So first we need to know about that. So mostly people ask.
Sir, what is PaaS?
Platform
PaaS.
platform as a service.
Oh, okay. Platform as a service.
Okay. Yeah. So which kind of development we do? People ask. We need to know the Java and do the Java development. So no, we don't use Java. We don't use any other language specific to Salesforce. They have a language. Okay, so we need to use that. First of all, it's not about only developing a language, writing the business logic. We also work with the web page development, right? UI development. We also write the database commands and all those things. That when you take any application, right? So, for example, this is one application. So we are seeing the web page, right? So we are interacting through these pages and trying to see some of the information. So what we see here, right? This is a web page. This we call as UI, right? User interface. So we also need to develop the UI. And when we interact with the UI, right? When we fill the forms and when you try to click on some of the button, so what will happen in the background? In the background, some business logic will be executed, right? So always from UI, so there is a chance to, so we might call some business logic to execute something, right? So business logic, once that is completed, that executes through business logic, it will interact with the database, right? If you see, if I fill this form properly and click on save, this information will be saved into the database, right? So internally, so it interact with the database, right? So this is a thing we see in all these areas we work. Okay, we are like a full stack developer. We work on UI, we work on business logic, we work on the database commands, all those things. Okay, so for UI, so what exactly we work? Okay, so let's see. So in general, UI development, to do any web page development, so we need to use HTML, right? And HTML is for the web page, how the elements in the web page, all those things we can add. To apply the styles, we use the CSS. Right? CSS is to apply the styles. And client-side logic means within the browser without interacting with the server. That means without even internet is not there also, the code can execute within the browser and give the results. Right? We say client-side logic. So we use JavaScript. Okay, so if you take any technology, so mostly to do the web development, so these are the things we use. Here also we use, but not too much. So the basics, if you know, that's sufficient, not in depth. Okay, so these are generic, but specific to Salesforce, they are providing some frameworks where we can do the development easily. Okay, so one of the framework is Visualforce. The other one is ARA, and the other one is LWC. Okay, so Visualforce is also like so HTML is a markup language to develop the UI. Visualforce is from Salesforce only, right? In Salesforce, we see developing the Visualforce pages. This is also a markup language which is provided by the Salesforce. And ARA, in 2014, they introduced this framework to meet the market standards for the UI. So this is also one of the framework to do the UI development. And in 2019, they introduced this LWC Lightning Web Components. So these are the things. So we discuss to do the web page development, right? UI development. So once we develop the pages and for the logic to execute when we interact on the page. Okay, so for the business logic, the programming language which we use is Apex. Okay, Apex is one of the programming languages. So you can say it is similar to core Java, C++. Okay, so it's similar to that, but not exactly the same, right? So I'm not expecting you to know already about C++ or Java, right? We'll be discussing this one from very scratch. We start from what is a program and understand all the basics, and we take the complex examples. Okay, that's what we do. So the next thing, once the logic is executed through this logic, so we can initiate some database commands. Okay, so for database in Salesforce, to read the information from the database, we have SQL, we have SOSL, and to alter the data, we have DML. Okay, so more about what is exact SQL, how it works. So when we start discussing, I'll explain. At high level, so these are the topics, right? So this is very easy. So with 1 or 2 hours discussion, you'll be knowing all the commands, how we can write. Okay, so it's not too much complex. I can say when compared to Java.NET, so intermediate level complexity. Okay, so many things are simplified on the Salesforce platform to make the development easy. Okay, so these are the different layers of the development when we deal with the any application. Okay, and also people ask about the integration, right? So as part of the business logic only, the integration related, right? So we achieve the integration using web services. Okay, we also discuss about this integration about web services. So we have SOAP API integration and the REST API integration. So this also we discuss as part of this training. Okay, at high level, so these are the things so we need to work. Okay, so first we focus on understanding, so what is this Apex programming language, how we can start writing the program, all those things. This is the most important. So once we know this, slowly we understand the different topics. Okay, so but when we say Apex, it is having many topics internally, right? It take a few weeks to understand fully about Apex. So later the other concepts slowly we'll discuss. Okay, so that's the scope. These are the things we discuss as part of this training. I'll explain everything in depth, but this ARA and LWC, due to the time or due to the complexity, okay, if I include in the same training also, people are feeling very complex. Okay, up to 30% syllabus of ARA and 30% syllabus of LWC. Those things I'll explain as part of this training. Okay, if you want in depth, it's again it's taking more than 20 hours for ARA and 20 hours for LWC. So that's like a different batch. Okay, so just know these things. Now we start with the Apex. Before starting, any questions? Okay, so
The
let's
business
understand.
logic, right?
Yeah, it's a business logic.
So actually, if we can go ahead with the UA, so we can understand the complete flow, right? So how UA will be generated.
Yeah,
After that, how we will write a business logic for that UA, and how database will get fetch records from the database to. So it's a kind of flow, right?
so understood. So I
If we
tried.
go directly to Apex programming, so I may get confused.
So the thing
Is
is,
there any way?
I tried with all the combinations, explaining these things, right? So this is my 102 batch.
Yeah.
In
Right.
few batches, I also tried starting with UI and later about business
Okay.
logic. Completely, people are not able to catch it. Okay, so
Okay. Okay.
first, so as per my what I faced and experienced so far. So first, you should
Okay.
know the Apex language. It's not that to run the Apex code always we need UI. Okay, there are many automated things which executes in the background. Okay,
Right.
so don't think that this Apex programs will execute only when you interact from the web page. Okay, so
Got
it might execute automatically when you create a record or update a record, right? Like a workflow rule, like a flow builder, right? Record triggered flow.
Perfectly got it. Thank you. Yeah, I understood.
So we can also schedule to run the code. There are many things like that. Okay.
Yeah.
So first we complete
Right.
that.
Yeah. Got it.
And
Sure.
we'll proceed with the UI. Okay.
Sure, sir. Thank you. Yeah.
So the first point when we start with any programming language, right? The first point, is it case sensitive or case insensitive? Okay. So Apex programming language is case insensitive, right? Meaning, so even though, let's say, to just show you, right, there is something called a sample in the program. If you try to refer that like this or like this, right, there is a change in the cases, right? So here small s, but the next one I give capital S. So it can recognize, it treat everything as same because Apex programming language is case insensitive. But some of the other languages like I think Java, .NET, those are case sensitive. Okay, so just know this point. So now, so maybe some of you might be from non-technical background, maybe MBA or civil, different background people are joining. So let's first understand, so what is a program, right? How on day-to-day, so if you are very new to programming, so what exactly is the program and what we see in the program? So just I'm going to explain now. So just I'm opening one of the document. Okay. Yeah, so if you see my screen, so if you compare, right? So on day-to-day, so we maybe write English, right? So English language. We use English language for the communication to talk with others and so for that purpose. So programming language is to make the system understand, to make the computer understand what we, so based on our commands, so the system, our computer will execute and give the results. So this is to communicate with the computer, right? Programming language. Natural languages, English and other languages, to communicate with the other people. So like that. So now, so when we first learn English language, so first we learn about some of the words, right? So some words like, so small we start with all the meanings of the different words, and after that we try to frame the sentences, right? So here the programming language, so let's say if you take one paragraph in English, okay, so assume that, so one paragraph is like one program. Okay, so how the paragraph will be formed? First we need to form the sentence. Sentence will be formed with multiple words. Here, instead of sentence, so we call as a statement. Only the difference with the technical terminology what we use. Okay, so instead of sentence, here we call as a statement. Statement will be formed with a set of tokens. Okay, instead of words, we are calling here as token. Right? Only the difference with the terminology. By combining multiple tokens, we can form a statement. Right? By combining multiple words, you can form a sentence in English. But when you form the sentence, you have to follow the grammar, right? The English language grammar that we need to follow and frame the sentence. So here, instead of grammar, so we call as a syntax. Okay, so we combine multiple tokens, and by following the syntax, we form the statement, right? So similar to here, what we do in English here also. So, but terminology wise, it is different. Maybe in English, when you end each and every statement, sorry, each and every sentence, we end with full stop, right? Full stop and write one more line. So in the programming, so we end the statement with the semicolon. Instead of full stop, here we use semicolon. So like that, some slight differences are there. Okay. And also when we say word, that can be either noun or adjective or verb. So there are different types of words, right? In the same way here in programming, each and every word what we see in a program is a token. Technically, we call as token. Internally, token can be a keyword or identifier or operator. So one of these type. When we start writing program, I'll explain. So I'll say everything is a token, but I'll show some tokens and say this is a keyword, this is an identifier. That time you'll understand how it works. Okay. So now we have the statement. So here in English, we combine multiple sentences to form the meaningful paragraph. So when you are writing a paragraph, if you are not keeping the sentences in a proper order, right? If you change the order of sentences, maybe the paragraph won't give any meaning, right? So whatever we write, that should be in a proper order to give the meaning, proper meaning. Okay. So here also same thing. When we write the multiple statements, we have to follow the flow. Flow means the proper order, right? First, which should execute. So after that, what is the statement you want to place to execute? So we follow the proper order, and it will execute line after line, and it will give the result in a proper way, right? So like that. Okay. So like that, you can understand the terminology of a program. So program is nothing but set of statements. Right? The statements are nothing but the instructions which we are giving for the computer to execute, and it gives the results. Okay. So what is the purpose of writing the program? To automate the day-to-day what we do. Right? For example, if I give 5 numbers and add, we can also think and we can add it and get the result. But mostly we are going to use calculator. So why we use calculator? It's very faster. It is very accurate, right? So maybe we might do some mistake if you don't add properly, right? So we automate most of the things what we do on day to day, right? For example, so if you go to bank nowadays, no need to go to a employee and give our cash to deposit. Right? There is a machine. We go to the ATM machine. We input our whatever you want to deposit. The machine will read what we give as input, the currency what we give, and automatically it will add that to our balance, right? So internally there is a program to do all those things, right? So those kind of things we do. So let's first understand about the different types of statements, right? So when we start learning English, first we know a few words and we start framing the sentences, right? Here also, first we understand what are the different types of statements we deal while writing a program. Once we know, then we can start writing a program. Okay, so now if you see English paragraph, sometimes we combine multiple sentences with, so we'll say end, right? We write one sentence and write one more sentence. Maybe we combine with because if, that we say compound statements like that, right? So like that here in programming also. So for different needs, we write different types of commands, different types of statements. First, we know we classify the statements into different different classifications, like how we are going to use each and every statement for our program to get the calculation for the data whatever the user input. Okay, so first let me list out the possible types of statements which we write in a program, and I'll explain one after other. Okay. So here, just saying types of statements. Okay, so memory statements. So it's not like you find in some book and they classified. Okay, this is for our understanding. So we are dividing into these categories and trying to understand. So how finally we can write a program. Okay, in general, when we write a program, we define some of the statements to allocate the memory. Right, memory is to hold the data what we supply. Yeah, I'll explain in detail. First, I'm just listing the types of statements. So memory statements, arithmetic, logical statements. We have conditional statements, controlling or we say looping statements, input statements. Okay, these are the types of statements. So first we see what is this memory statement and how we define this one. Okay, so memory is to hold the information. Right? So the thing is when we give some data as input, to hold that data whatever we give as input, system needs some memory to be allocated. In that memory, the data will store. Right? Let's say we use computer, right? So we should have some memory, right? Hard disk where it is having maybe 1 terabyte or 2 terabyte, whatever, as per your configuration. We can save all our information, files, videos, everything in that hard drive, right? So each thing what we save in our computer needs some memory. It occupies some space, right, in the memory. So here also, when we write the program, whatever the data we give as input, maybe after doing some calculation to store the result, it needs memory. Okay, that we allocate by using this memory statement. So to allocate the memory statement, it's not that for every type of data what we deal in a program occupy the same memory, right? Based on the type of data what we deal, the memory what the data needs might vary. Okay, so to classify the different types of data what we deal, okay, so in the programming languages you see a concept called data types. Okay, so this data type is to understand which type of data we deal. Based on the type of data what we deal, the system is going to allocate only that much memory needed. If the data types concept is not there, so maybe if for everything, if the system is allocating the same memory, maybe for few types, so we need very, very less memory. For few types of data, more memory is needed. So memory will be wasted. Okay, to utilize the memory in a better way, in the programming languages, you see data types. Okay, first we list out here whatever I am going to list those what we deal in the Apex programming language. Maybe in other programming languages, the data types whatever available might be different. Okay, we are not talking about the other programming languages. So all these basics what we are going to learn. So by keeping the Apex programming language in mind, we are going to understand all these basics. Okay, So the data types available in the Apex programming language, maybe in the alphabetical order, I'll list out all the data types. And the first one is blob. So blob is one of the data type. Okay, so blob means binary large object. Okay, so when you deal with the programming, if you want to store any attachment, right? If you see on day to day, so once we log in, we also find some options to attach. So when we attach, the file can be either PDF or maybe JPG image format, or it can be a text, it can be an Excel file or anything, right? So any file, if you want to hold, right? If you want to hold using Apex, so we allocate the memory by using blob. Okay, this is to hold the attachments whenever we have some file to store, right? Attachments or we say files, right? To hold this files information, so we allocate the memory by using the blob, one of the data type. How we write that statement, I'll explain. Once after listing out all these types, we'll be writing the statements. Okay, so the next one is Boolean. Okay, so it accepts either true or false, right? So Boolean. So mostly on day to day when we deal with the true or false scenarios, so that time, right? So we use Boolean. Suppose say is a person is minor, true or false. So if the age is less than 18, true. Right, like that. Is to maintain that we use Boolean, one of the data type. The next one is date. Okay, to deal with the date. Okay, so in general, date, right? There are different formats. So based on the country, the format what they follow is different. So maybe US they follow MMDD, right? They follow MMDD by that format. Okay, so maybe in India the format might be different, right? Based on the country, these formats might be different, right? So those kind of formats of date it can hold. Okay, so the next one is more about this we'll see when we start writing. Okay, so the next type of data type is date time. So along with the date, the time also will be maintained. Okay, again for that there is a specific format. For now, right, it is like hours, minutes, and seconds, like this. Okay, so to hold date along with the time, we use this date time, right? Date of birth. I mean, sorry, date of birth and maybe joining date, few of the things we use date. Right? In few situations we need date time also. For example, so our meeting time, maybe this batch I started, it is having a date and also the time when it is started, like that. Okay, so the next one, decimal, is one of the data type. This is to store the number. Okay, we store the numbers in the decimal. So when I say number, which type of number? Number which can have the decimal digits. For example, $25.5. Right? So if sometimes on day to day to keep the currency we maintain with the decimals, right? So after dot, that value also we maintain, right? So just that's the thing. When we want to have a number along with the decimal digits, that time we go with the decimal data type. Okay, this is one of the example of the number. The next one, double. Okay, this one mostly we don't use. So the purpose of this double is to hold the huge decimal value. For example, maybe up to 18 digits, the decimal can hold. If it is beyond that, right? If your number is a very huge number, right? It's like this. It's very difficult to read, right? So that time in mathematics also, if you see, these things will be used with some exponential something like this to maintain such kind of huge numbers. This double data type will be used. Mostly we don't use this, just get to know, right? So to hold huge decimal value, okay, we use this double data type. The next one is ID. ID is one of the data type. So if you see, when we discussed about administration, the database tables we call as object in Salesforce, right? We have standard object, we have custom object. We created few records, right? Records means rows. Whatever the records we created in the standard object or custom object, for each record, system generate unique record ID. Record ID can be either 15 digit or 18 digit. Okay, so to hold those IDs, right, either 15 digit or 18 digit record ID, so we use this ID data type, right? 15 or 18 digit record ID to hold this ID data type will be used. Okay. The next one is integer. Integer is also a number, right? But it's like a rounded number. It won't allow the decimals. For example, if you are counting, how we say 1, 2, 3, 4. We don't say 5.5 like that, right? So in some situations for counting, maybe let's say if you are talking about the quantity, right? 5 or 10, we don't say 5.5 or 10.5, something like that. So in those situations, we need to go with integer. Okay. So this is a number type. The next one, long. We have one of the data type. It's a bigger integer value. If the integer value is very huge, right? So that time to hold the huge integer value, that time we use long, one of the data type. Okay, so very rare to use this. Okay. So the next one, one second. Please give me 1 minute. Hello, yeah, sorry. So the next one is object. Okay, object is one of the data type. So sometimes we'll see a situation where we don't know which kind of data we need to do. So maybe it can be a number, or it can be a text, or it can be a Boolean. So if we don't have the clarity, which type of data we did, if you want to maintain the information in a generic way, we use this object to data type, right? Generic, you can say generic to hold any type of data, right? Even Boolean, even decimal, tape, anything it can hold. Okay, that's the object data type. The next one is a string. String data type is to hold the text value. So starting from single character to the big sentence and the paragraph also, you can store in the string type. The only the rule is we have to keep this in single quote. Okay, so not double quotes. Okay, maybe in other languages the string they keep inside double quote, but in Apex we need to keep the string in single quote. Right, within this we keep some text whatever you want. Right, something like this, whatever you feel. You can write multiple sentences. Right, so that is the string to hold the text. Only the rule is the text should be inside the single quote. Right, so you can also keep number. Right, here even though this is a number, we are saying we are storing this number in the text form. Right, this also it will treat as text. Okay, but if you don't want this to treat as text, so you have to go with one of this type. Right, let's say here, so no need to use any single quotes. Right, if you keep inside the single quote, that means system will understand that it is a text. Okay, that's the type. So finally the last one is time. Right, to hold the time, maybe this is not the maybe exact format. When we deal, we'll see how it stores internally. Okay, so mostly to hold the hours, minutes, and seconds, the time. So we use this time data type. Okay, so these are the different data types, so which we use so on day to day while writing the program. Okay, so let's first write our statement, right? So now we understood what are the types. Now let's define a memory statement. So we define memory statement to store the data, right? To store some information, we define the memory statement. I mean, so now let's see what is the syntax. Okay, so let's say we want to store one of the person information. Okay, so let's say the first name of a person. Okay, so what do you think the name of a person is which type? So mostly when we deal with, yeah,
String.
yeah, so string, right? So when we deal with the text, we need to take string. So the syntax is the data type, whatever the data type is there, that one, space, the name, right? Because we might store multiple string values. For example, we also can store last name and the city or different information of a person. Okay, so whatever the memory we are allocating, to refer that the value present in that memory, we need to give that name. So the memory, whatever it allocates, since we want to refer that again and again, we need to give some name for the memory, whatever system is allocated. Okay, so here I'm giving the name as first name. Okay, so this is data type space and give the name for the memory what we are allocating. Here I'm giving the name as first name, and to end the statement, right? This is one of the statement which we are writing in Apex. If you want to end any statement, we use a semicolon, right? Maybe in English we use full stop. Here we use a semicolon. Okay, and if you want to write one more statement, maybe in English immediately we start and write one more sentence, but here we write each and every statement in separate line so that we can read it easily. Okay, so again we want to store the last name, right? Again,
Srinivas, one thing, why you use a semicolon instead of anything other than that?
sorry.
Why do you use a semicolon?
Yeah, so that's the syntax. Right? Syntax means the rules. The language is having the rules, right?
Okay.
So as per the rule, whenever you write any statement, we need to end with semicolon, right? In English, so why we end the sentence with full stop? So why not semicolon? That's the rule, right? Who introduced English language? They mentioned that as a rule, we need to use full stop for each and every sentence. Here also, it's a rule. Whenever you write any statement, if you want to end the statement, you need to give semicolon so that system can understand that's the end of the line. Okay. So now, mostly, if you want to write one more statement, here also you can write, but it's very difficult to read. That's why mostly in the languages, while writing the program, we write each and every statement in separate line. Okay. I want to store last name also. Right. I'm defining one more memory string type, and I'm giving the name, last name, and I'm ending that statement with the again semicolon, right? And also, what we can do, since first name and last name same type, right? So we need first name memory and the last name memory of the same type called string. So what we can also do when we are defining, when we are allocating memory for same type of data, right? We also give like this. So this is the data type space. This is one memory location. We are saying that allocate memory with this name. And if you want one more, we keep comma. After comma, giving space is up to you. If you want to give, you can give. Otherwise, even though if you don't give, also fine. That few things are like it's up to you. So in readable perspective, if you it is good. It's like that. Okay. But here, giving the space is mandatory. Okay. So those things when we start doing the practice, we'll be knowing. Okay. So now this statement, string data type, with that we are allocating two memory locations. One is to hold first name, the other one is to hold the last name. Right? If you want, we can also give the default value. Let's say while allocating the memory with the name, last name, if you want to give some default value, that is also possible. Right? We give equal to, and I want to store that is the memory, the last name, whatever system is going to allocate. I want to store a name like this. Okay, so that is possible, right? So let's say here also I want to store. So Mark Benioff is the CEO of Salesforce. Okay, so now, so like this. Okay, so let's say now I want to store the age, right? Age like 45, 50, like that, right? So I want to store the age of a person. So age means number, right? So number, if you see, we have two options mostly. decimal and integer, right? If you want to allow 25.67 here, something like that, we go with the decimal. If you want, in general, when we deal, we say 30, 35, like that, rounded number, right? So I think it's better to take integer. Okay, so integer, it will store, right? So the number. Okay, so let's say I'm giving like this, right? I mean, that's a value, but for this to store, the name for the memory, give like this, right? Is, so here we can store the values. Okay, as a default, I want to store 54. Okay, we give. Okay, here we should not keep this inside single quote. Okay, the numbers directly we give in assign. This is one of the data type. This is the name given for the integer type, and we are also assigning the default value. Right. So now, let's say we want to store true or false, right? So I'm just defining Boolean, and here, so let's say, is that person is a CEO or not? Just I want to check. If that person is a CEO, it should be true. Not CEO, it should be false. Right? You can give some name here to hold either true or false. Yeah, I'm giving the name is CEO. Okay, so the value we can also assign later. It's not that at the time of defining only we assign. Okay, this is the memory allocated. Later in a next statement, if you want to assign, that is also possible, right? Is CEO is equal to true, right? We can store either true or false values. Okay, so we can define the memory statements like this. Okay, so just to understand, and also here whatever we are writing, is it correct? Are we really following the syntax? So if you want to check, we can check. Okay, as a developer, to quickly play with what we are writing is correct or not and understand how these things are working. So what we do, log into Salesforce, right? So create an account and log in. Once you log in, you need to click on this gear icon and you will see one option called Developer Console. Click on Developer Console. Okay, so this is the Developer Console. Here as a developer, we can write some Apex statements and execute and understand the results quickly. So no need to follow any program structure. Okay, so to do that, once you open the Developer Console, click on Debug. Okay, make sure to click on Debug. The first option, Open Execute Anonymous window. Here simply we write the Apex statements and check how the statement is working. Okay, now if you see, we wrote this, right? So if you do something wrong, let's say I'm not ending this with semicolon, right? The rule is the statement should end with semicolon, but I'm not ending. That means as per the syntax, right? Like a grammar in English, here we call syntax. It is not correct. So when you try to execute, if you see, it is throwing error, right? So that means it will compile and it will say this is not correct. Unexpected token first name. So all these things are because we are not ending this statement with the semicolon. But if you end it and execute, you might not see any program. I mean, you might not see any problem. You see execute and so we are not seeing anything saying it is not correct. Yeah, that means the code is correct. Okay, so in the initial stage, I recommend you to execute here and check. whatever you are writing, all those things, right? This entire thing, if you want to check, you can check, right? So execute, and we are not seeing any problem. Okay, so it is correct. And also in the background, if you see, every time when we execute, system is generating a log, right? These are the logs. Each time whenever we execute some logic, system generate the log. So what that log will hold, it will hold how much memory, so how the program started, how much memory is allocated, right? Each and every statement, what is happening, all those things it provide in the log. Then sometimes as a developer, we need to look into this log and understand how our programming is executing and working. Okay, these things we'll see slowly. Okay, so that's about how we define the memory statement. So now here we have to follow some rules. It's not that the name, I mean, this may be, so here first understand in these statements, whatever we wrote so far, all these are the tokens, right? So I'm saying everything, each and every word in a program is a token. We technically call as token. Okay, but a token can be either a keyword or identifier or operator like that, right? So now let's say this in the above statements here, whatever we have, string, right? Integer, Boolean. So all these things. So who provided? So all these are the data types. All these data types are provided by Apex programming language. Salesforce is offering all these things, so by default, to represent the data type. Okay, so the token, right? This is also a token. Everything is a token. The token which is provided by the system. System is the programming language by default. So those which we cannot change the meaning, right? When I say string, it can always store only string value. I cannot change this meaning of this. I cannot make this to hold number. Okay, so the tokens which are provided by system and which we cannot change, those things we call as keywords. Okay, so here string, integer, Boolean, all these are data types provided by Salesforce. All these things we call as keywords, right? So these are the examples of the keywords. Okay, so what system provide and which we cannot change the meaning. Okay, so slowly we'll also understand few more keywords what system offer. Okay, the next thing, if you see here, we also have identifiers. So what is that identifier? In these statements, so when we define the string and here we are giving the name, right? This is the name for the memory what system is allocating to hold the first name. So this, who is deciding this name? As a developer, we can decide. Maybe as a developer, I gave this name. Maybe if you are developing, you might give something like this. Right? Developer to developer, how they define might be different, right? So this name is in the developer hands. So what is the name they want to give? For the identification purpose, right? For the memory, whatever system allocates, and to identify that whenever we want, we are defining this, right? So this is also a token. We are defining this for the identification of memory what we are allocating. So this we call as identifier. Okay, identifiers means those are in our hands, right? We define as per the needs, as per the requirement. in the above program, all the names given to the memory, those things we call as identifiers, right? So first name, last name, age, all those are the identifiers. Okay, but when we say identifier on day to day, when we talk with other developer, when you say identifier, people might not understand. Okay, this is a very technical terminology. Okay, so identifiers, we also call these identifiers as, especially when we deal with this memory allocation, these things we also call as data members. Right? People might say identifier, people say data member. Data member means the name what we give for memory, what we are allocating. So this is also a technical term. This also on day-to-day people might not understand. But what people can understand if you say variable. Okay, so the name what we give for this memory, all these things, whatever we are allocating here, technically on day-to-day people refer as variable. So variable means as a developer, whatever the name we gave for one of the data type while allocating the memory, those things we call as variables. Okay, maybe from now onwards going forward, so when we deal with these statements, if I give some name for the memory while allocating, this we call as variable, right? I'll say variable, first name variable, age variable, ECO, this is one variable, so all these things. Okay, so that's one of the thing. And also in the above program, if you see in the above program we have operators and the literals and strings, right? So string means in the above program, so this is a string. Okay, so strings, so mark, so all these are the strings in the above statement, in these statements. Okay, so we also have one more category, literals. Literals means the numbers what we deal. So literals, so maybe the number, so those kind of things fall under this category. Yeah, even though you don't know also is fine, but just I'm explaining few things we should know. So operators means equal, plus, minus, all those are operators. In the above program, equal to is a operator. Okay, so technically all these are tokens, but the token can be either a keyword or identifier. We also call as variable, string, so all these different categories. Okay, so just know about these things. Okay, and also one of the main thing what we need to know, is it okay to give any name for the variable, right? Variable means here what we are defining. So no, there are some rules as per the syntax. It's not that you can give any name whatever you want. For example, I cannot define like this. Variables should not have space. If you have space, it will throw error, right? So that's one of the point, right? So rules for the name of a variable. Okay, so the rule is don't give space for the variable. Okay, so this is wrong, right? This is invalid, incorrect syntax, right? And one more thing, variables can have, now this is correct, variables can have number, but number, it should not start with number, right? So let's say like this, if I give, it is wrong, right? But here, if I give, it's correct, right? It can be anywhere. I mean, in middle also you can give. Only the rule is it should not start with number, right? So variables can have number, but should not start with number. That's the rule, right? This is invalid. So valid, this is valid, like that, okay? And also variables should not have special characters except underscore. Special characters means dollar, star, and that any special characters. Variables, right, it is throwing error, should not have the special characters except underscore. Right? Underscore can be there. I'm giving underscore and execute, but this is hyphen, right? Underscore means this. Okay, variable, so invalid character at underscore. So I'm saying except underscore, any other special characters we cannot use, but when we use underscore, that should not be either in the beginning or ending. Okay, if you give this underscore either in the beginning or ending, it will give error. Okay. So that's the point. Variables should not have special characters except underscore, but variable should not start with variable should not start with start or end underscore. It can be somewhere in middle, right? So all these are wrong things, right? This is wrong, this is wrong. It's like this. Okay, so but in between, if you use, it will work. Let's say first underscore name. I'm giving like this. This is valid. Okay, so maybe if you want to check, so that is valid, right? So like that. Okay, we should know about the rules. And the one of the last thing, the variable name should not be the keyword. Keyword means which is system provided, right? Let's say I'm giving the name of the variable as Boolean, right? Boolean is also a keyword, right? It's not accepted. Identifier name is reserved. Okay, so the point is variables should not be the keyword. This is invalid. Okay, so these rules we have to follow. So if you follow, I think it will be good. Yeah, that's about this one. So before we proceed with other things, so let's have 10 minutes break and we'll discuss about the questions and the continue. Right?
This conference will now be recorded.
Okay. So just we understood how we define one of the memory statement and how we can give the name for the variables. And so these are the naming conventions which we need to follow. I mean, without following this, you'll see the error. Our code won't execute, right? So I can say this syntax, right? If you don't follow the syntax, our code won't execute properly. Okay. So now the other thing what I want to explain. So we say indentation. Okay. So indentation means the standards which we follow as a developer, so people with some experience with the development. Most of all the developers follow some of the standards. Okay. So some of the standards what we need to follow. So even though you don't follow, also nothing will happen. Okay. But if you follow, it is better. People can understand it, have good experience. Okay. So one of such kind of rules. So if you see here, whenever I define these things, the name of the whatever the data types we are mentioning. So I'm starting with the capital letter and the remaining all small letters, right? So if you see any data type what I mentioned here, I'm starting with the capital letter and the remaining everything as small letter. So we need to follow that. If you don't follow, also it will work. For example, if you go back here, right, string, so first name, it will, if you save, it will save and it will work. And also if you give everything in the capital letter, so this time, right, this time also it will work, right? If you execute, it will work, right? So whatever indentation, the standards what we are discussing here, if you are not following also, technically the code will work. But people feel some junior developer, someone starting newly, they are developing the code. To avoid that, so always the data type what we give start with capital letter, remaining small letter, follow this kind of standard, right? And the variable name, whatever we are giving, right? So first name, so we need to start with the small letter, and after that each and every word, if your variable is having multiple words, each and every word we have to give in the capital letter. Okay. So this we say camel case, means we start with small character, small case, and each and every word with the capital letter. So this kind of standard, if you follow, it is good. Okay. And also whenever we define a variable, let's say we are defining last name, if you give something like this, right, is it possible for us to guess what the person is going to store? We don't have any idea. So don't try to give the name of the variable like ABC XYZ like that, right? So we have to give the meaningful name, right? So my requirement is I want to store the last name of a person. If you give like this, by reading this, people can understand, they can guess what we are going to store into this variable. Okay. So just understand about that. Okay. So try to follow these rules. So give meaningful variable name, right? And the variable name keep as camel case. Follow this standard. Start all the data types with capital letter. Okay, these are the standards we need to follow. Hi, sound. Well, yeah, sorry. So now, yeah, if you see here, so these are the indentation standards we have to follow. What I can say, even though you don't follow, still our code will work. But people think that some junior developer is doing the development. Okay, so just those are the some of the points. So far, any questions on understanding what we discussed so far? Anyone? So any questions? So far, are you good?
Yeah, Srini.
Okay. So now, so far, whatever we discussed, right? So these data types. So there are there is a different category of the data type. Okay, so far, whatever here we have listed, these things we call as primitive data types. Okay, so what is this primitive data type? We also have one more type called non-primitive data type. Okay, so primitive data types means, so whatever the variable we define, right? Whatever the memory we allocate by defining the primitive data type, directly whatever the memory allocated by system, into that our value will assign. So that's why people say call by value means, so for example, I'm defining one of the variable to hold integer value, and when you assign value, directly the value what we are assigning will store into that memory whatever system allocates. So that we call as call by value. Directly our value will store. But we have one more concept called non-primitive data types. Okay, here we say it is called by reference. Reference means once we define this non-primitive data type, one of the variable, we cannot directly assign the value. It cannot accept the value. Non-primitive data type will only hold the reference. Reference means the location of the data. Let's say data might be there somewhere in the memory. What is the location of that memory? That location it will hold, not the actual data. So that we call as non-primitive data type, maybe to make you understand. So first let me list out some of the non-primitive data types what we have. Okay, so the first thing, all the standard objects, the custom objects what we have. Right here in Salesforce, object means database table. The database table by default Salesforce provide, we call that as standard object. The database table what we create as per the requirement, that we call as custom object. Right, so we can use all standard objects and custom objects as non-primitive data types. And also we have S object, one of the type, which can hold either standard object or custom object. Okay, we have a generic type which can hold either standard object or the custom object. Okay, that we call as non-primitive data type. I mean, this is also non-primitive category. So, and also going forward, we write some Apex programs. So far, we are writing the fetch statements, we keep all these statements in a program. So the fx program also we can define as a
Shrenu, question here.
non-primitive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is is it
Can
similar
you
to
speak
our
loudly?
custom object? Yeah. Is it similar to our custom object to what we have developed in admin? This standard objects and custom objects, or something is this something different?
Same thing, right? Standard object in the as part of the administration, what we see, right? What we saw, campaign, lead, account, contact,
Yeah.
all those are standard objects. And we
Okay.
created some objects, course underscore C, applicant underscore C, same thing, right?
Acha. Okay. Yeah. Got it.
Okay. So now here, some of the examples for the standard object, we know account, contact, opportunity, all those are the some of the standard objects. Right? Let's say maybe I'll say contact, etc. Okay, so custom objects already as part of our admin we created applicant underscore C, course underscore application underscore C, some of the custom objects. These are the examples. Okay, now if you want to define so the variable for this account. So this is nothing but one of the database table, right? So standard object means it is a one of the database table, and we can store account information. Account means company, right? So maybe so if you go to one of the standard application sales, so click on account. If you see this account table, we have all these columns, right? Account name, account site, phone, all these things. So we can create the memory if you allocate the memory like this, right? This is a non-primitive data type, and I am defining a variable. That means we are allocating the memory. So this, what exactly we can store into this? This is to store one row in this table. Now, if you see total 6 rows we have, 6 records we have. If you want to hold one of this record information, so we define like this, right? Account and some name. Now in this variable, what we can store, one of the row in this table, the one of the row information in this table we can store into this. But here, like integer, like string, we cannot assign the value directly, right? Let's say we want to give all these values, account name, site, phone, all these things. We cannot directly give, right? If you want to give, how we give? Because there are many columns, right? Which column value we give? It is difficult to give like that, right? So if it is a non-primitive type, right? So let's say integer quantity is equal to, we give 10 or 20. We know that it only accepts one value, and we directly assign. But this is a row. In row, there can be many columns. How you give this value, right? How we give this value? Separately we need to give, right? That's why directly assigning is not possible. Okay, so what we do? So we allocate the empty memory for this row. To insert, we allocate empty memory. So we do that by using new that data type. Now what it will do? It will allocate one empty row, right? It's like it will be allocating one more empty row, and we need to fill that value. So like that, right? It's like when you click on new, now it is opening a form, right? This statement is like that. Now this is equivalent to this form, what is open, right? So now, so whatever we populate here, this will be holding somewhere in the memory, right? This whatever we are filling here will temporarily hold in one of the place in the memory. So that location, right? So this is this form. Whatever data we fill in this entire form, that will be stored in one of the place in the memory. Where that memory is located, that location only it will assign to this one. Okay, not the direct value. We cannot assign the value directly. What we can do for non-primitive data type, we can only store the reference. The data will be somewhere. So where the data present, that location is assigned. Okay, that's why we call this as non-primitive data type. So how we fill each and every cell? Now if you see, this is the empty one, right? This is the, I'm saying this is like this empty form. Okay, any questions? Yeah, this is the empty form. Here in UI, how we give? So let's say we give some name, right? So let's say, so this is the name I'm giving, right? So this is the name I'm giving, and here I'm giving this rating. Like that we are filling, right? So here in the background in the code, how we populate. So whatever the location, right? This will hold the location of this empty form, what it is open. Into that, let's say I want to store the value into this account name, right? Your name is equal to, and here give the name. So whatever you want, right? Let's say I'm giving like this, right? So again, I want to also store rating, right? For the rating field, whatever the API name is there, that one. And what is the value you want to give, that we can give. Right? Like this, we need to add each and every value, right? So this type we call as non-primitive data type. So for now, I'm not expecting you to know fully this one in detail. We discuss. So going forward, so for now, just to get to know, we have a type called non-primitive data type. In that non-primitive data type, directly assigning the value is not possible. Right? We just can only assign the location where the data present. By using that, we can try to make changes to that information. Okay, so that's the non-primitive data
Do
type.
you
More
do we
about
have
this,
arrays collection
yeah.
kind of in our data types?
Yes. Okay, we'll discuss that little later.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah. So that's about this memory statement and how we need to move. The next type, arithmetic and logical statements. Let's see so how we deal with these kind of statements. You can ask any questions so far if you have. Okay. So now here in arithmetic statements, logical statements, there are different categories. Okay. So first we deal with the assignment operator. Okay. So equal to, we use equal to for the assignment. Right. So let's say already we use, right? So integer is, let's say this is one of the variable which we are defining, and how we assign the value directly at the time of defining, you can assign, otherwise is equal to, you can give this, right? So always the right hand side value will be assigned to left hand side, right? LHS is equal to RHS. So like this. So now I think someone is not in. Do you have any questions? So if you don't have any questions, please stay on. Okay, so now let's say here I'm also defining so age2, one more variable. So what we can do, I can say age2 is equal to age. If I do like this, what will happen? The value present in this age, that will be assigned to this age2. That's the meaning of that. Now the age2 value also becomes as 30. Okay, so like that we deal with the assignment operator, right? So doing something like this is not possible, right? Always into memory we can store the value. Like that we cannot do. Okay, either directly assign the value or maybe refer a variable where it is already having value to assign. Or let's say for this I'm adding 50. That means is 30 plus 50, 80. Now age2 will become 80, right? So like that. So we use this assignment to assign the value. Okay, so if you want to play with this, how this is working, so what we can do, so go to this developer console, right, debug. So first option, open execute anonymous window, you see like this. Now I want to know, okay, so what is the value of age and what is the value of the age2. So as a developer, if you want to print something in the log, in general, if you see, whenever we execute, system is generating the log. Okay, so for now I'm clearing those logs. Next time when we execute, it will generate one more log. When the log is generated, in that log, as a developer, if you want to print something, if you are interested to see something from this code in the log, we can print it to understand how it is working. So here I'm using system.debug and I'm using age, right? And also system.debug is to both I am printing. Okay, so just understand these things will be printed in the log when we execute this code. I'll show you how we see that. So age should be 30. This next one age2 should be 80. Right? So execute. Here generate log. But after executing, if you want to open the log automatically, you can also check this one. Click on execute. If you see, the log is automatically open. But for us, looking into each and everything and understanding is very difficult. If you want to see only what we are printing, we don't want system generated. Okay, you need to check this checkbox so that what we printed, only those things you see. If you see here, first you are seeing 30 and after that 80. The first thing what we are printing is the age 30. Age2 is 80 because we are adding. So like that, this is how the assignment will work. Okay, that's the assignment operator. The next one is about the arithmetic operators. Okay, we have many operators. So we have plus for addition, minus for subtraction, and for multiplication we use a star. For division we use a slash. Okay, so there are many other things. So these are the main things which we use. Okay, so here, so how we use, already we use that here, right? This is one of the examples. You can add it, you can subtract, you can multiply. So here also, when we deal with these arithmetic operators, so there are different classifications. So you might hear about something like unary operators. You might hear about binary, these things. Just I'll give one example for this each. Okay, ternary operator. So when people say unary operator, it's very common in the programs you see I++, something like this you see most of the times. So what is the meaning of this one? So assume that we have a variable with the name I, and we have a default value of 0. So when this statement executes, I value will be incremented by 1. Okay, that's what will happen. I value will be incremented by 1. Okay, the internal meaning of this I++ is I equal to I plus 1. Okay, instead of writing this much, this is the shortcut. Okay, so now here this is one value, plus is one operator. One value, one operator. So that's why we call this as unary operator. In the place of plus, you can also give minus, all those kind of things. Okay, this is one of the example. Maybe if you want to understand that, I recommend you to play here in the initial stage itself. If you execute and if you are getting the results, you get more confidence. Okay, so now what I'll do, I'm defining a variable name I gave as I, assigning value 0. Now I'm keeping this. Now what will happen when this statement started, the I value is 0. When this statement executes, it will increment the I value by 1. The I value becomes 1, and that I am printing. If I call this 2 times, what will happen? Here becomes 1. Here 1 plus 1, 2. You'll see I value as 2. Right? So execute. C2, right? In the same way, you can play with other things. So, for example, again I am decrementing. Now, what is the value you see here? 2 minus 1, 1. Right? First, it will print 2, and after that again 1, because we are decrementing. So, like that. Okay, this is one of the example for the unary operator. Okay, so like this, just for your reference, I'm just keeping here. Okay, so the next one, binary operator. Okay, so most of the complex expressions what we see on day to day, we can consider everything as binary. Okay, let me give one example. Let's say we have integer. Let's say we have many numbers, number 1, number 2, number 3. So let's say here I'm giving some values into these things. Okay, so now I'm writing maybe I'm defining one of the variable result. I'm just giving like this, number 1 plus number 2 multiplied by number 3 minus number 1. Right, I'm giving this expression, that even though this expression is having many values and many operators, still we call this as binary operator. The reason is, when you have the expression like this, system cannot do the calculation at a time for everything. First it take 2 values, and with operator it will do the calculation. So whatever the result is there, again from this it will subtract, and what is the value? 5. Right, now again what is the value? So like that it will do. Finally for number 1, again 900. Like that it will do the calculation. Okay, even though we have the complex expression, internally system take only 2 values and 1 operator and do the calculation. That result again it will apply with other things like that. Okay, so but now when you have like this, how can we guess what is the result? So which order it follows? Will it follow this first it will add these two, and after that multiply and subtract, or first it will multiply and after subtract and after add. What will happen? Based on that, the result will be different, right? So if you have like this, we need to know about a concept called operator precedence. That means system give more priority for star. So we need to see that, and we have to understand this will be executed like that. So, but I don't want to bother about remembering that. If you don't want to remember the operator precedence, still as a developer, we can decide what we want. So my meaning is, first what I want to add this 2, right? I'm keeping in the bracket, that way it will make sure that it will add this separately. And also I'm adding in this bracket. That means system will understand it, make sure that it will do the calculation separately for this. Both results it will multiply. So that way, as a developer, we can manage, we can decide how exactly you want this to be executed, right? So like that. So now as per this, 5 plus 10, 15, and here 85, 15 multiplied by 85, whatever the result is there, that we'll see. So execute, debug only. Okay, I think I'm not printing. Okay, so to print we use system.debug and refer that to print. Okay, execute. Log is generated, click on debug only. If you see, this is a value. Okay, so like that. So just understand, copying for your reference. The final thing today is the ternary operator. So what is this ternary operator? How it works? So it's like a conditional. We have next topic, conditional statement. This is also kind of that, but when we deal with only one statement, we use this. So it is like this. We have condition. If the condition is true,
Can anybody hear him?
No,
Okay, I thought it's me.
he's having an technical difficulties.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Let him rejoin.
hello? Yeah, sorry, I think my internet is disconnected. So are you able to see my screen?
Yes, sir.
So yeah, here what I'm trying to explain, how we use the ternary operator. Ternary operator means, so we deal with the 3 expressions and the 2 operators. Okay, so here one of the example, let's say I'm just checking if the number 1 is greater than number 2, right? I'm giving a question mark if this is true, right? If this is true, so what I want, so I want to consider number 1. Else, I want to consider number 2. So what will happen? 5 is greater than 10? No, wrong. Now this will execute. This value is 10. Now the result of this entire expression is 10. We are assigning to this result. Now here you see the result as 10. Okay, like that. If you want to deal like that, that time we use the ternary operator, right? You are seeing 10, right? So like that. This is one of the example. So the other things, so we also have the arithmetic assignment and the other types. So since we don't have time today, tomorrow we'll deal with that. Okay. So before ending today, any questions, anyone?
Will this notes to be saved in which path?
I'll share. I'll
Okay.
send email. Notes
Oh,
and
okay, sir.
video.
Perfect. Thank you, sir. That's the only question I have.
Are we doing the ternary operators tomorrow again? Because I didn't understand that part.
Yeah, if needed, we'll do. I mean, what you did not understand.
I understood under the question mark. I didn't understand after that what he did. Number 1 is to number 2. What is that?
So this is like a condition, right? Number 1 is greater than number 2. Any condition you can use. Okay, but here I am using this condition. If the condition is satisfied, right? In our situation, number 1 is 5. We know that number 1 is 5, number 2 10. 5 greater than 10? No, right? Wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if it is wrong, after colon, whatever is there, that will be executed. If this is true, after question mark, whatever is there, that will be executed. Right? So now, let's say I'm making this number 1 as 50. So 50 is greater than 10. That's correct. That's why after question mark, whatever is there, that it will give as a result for this.
Okay.
Now,
It's basically so the before the 2 dots is anything is true and after the 2 dots is false, right? So
yeah,
it's like
correct.
okay.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Anyway, you can also ask tomorrow. We'll discuss and continue. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. I'll share these notes in the video next maybe few hours by evening.
Will you be sending the recording as well, or just the notes?
Yeah, video in the sense recording only. Notes and the recording. I'll share.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, we'll continue tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.